What's up, everyone? Welcome to Level 7. It is time for another episode of the Agents of Fandom podcast. I'm your host, TJ Zwarich, and although we don't have any show to break down and cover today, Percy Jackson is finished. We've had wonderful shows the last 3 weeks with amazing guests covering Percy Jackson Season 1, so make sure you check that out if you have not yet. We haven't yet reached Avatar, The Last Airbender, coming on Netflix. While there's been a ton of... This has been one of the most weird press tours I think I've ever seen for this show. So maybe that's something we can touch on a little bit next week as a little bit of a primer for Avatar The Last Airbender. But Disney had an investor day, a call, whatever have you, and wow, did they release a ton of information. And to help me break it down, I got my trusty co-host, good buddy, Adam Blevins. How you doing, Adam?
I'm doing great, man. Yeah, one of the most unexpectedly great calls to delay our show 24 hours, and that it gave us several. I mean, we won't be going for several hours, but if we needed to, just several hours worth of stuff to talk about. I mean, what a drop. And then an investor call, nonetheless, not D23, not a Comic-Con or anything. They must have really been wanting some good press to drop all of this stuff on an investor call. But no, I'm excited, man. Yeah, we've got so much to get into, and just your tease of a talk about the Avatar press tour next week has me excited because, like you said, that is one of the most fascinating things going on right now. Each time one of the members of that cast gives an interview. But just to bring it back to today, man, yeah, I'm excited to talk about all this news for sure.
And before we get started, make sure you're following the Agents of Fandom on socials, at Agents Fandom on Twitter and TikTok, Agents of Fandom everywhere else. And of course, if you're watching us on YouTube today, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell as well. And make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcast, because believe it or not, there are actually going to be some additional episodes hitting the Agents of Fandom podcast feed to make sure that everyone is getting all the content they need. Maybe you're not a YouTube person, and if you're not, that's okay, because you will no longer be missing out on the Agents of Fandom Comic Corner hosted by Damon Gray. We're going to be dropping that on the Agents of Fandom podcast feed now, so you'll hear Damon, you'll hear AF, and all the amazing guests that they bring onto that show, talking about comics, and all of the world with that world of comic books and the artists, the authors. We've had so many amazing guests on the show. And so make sure you check that one out when it hits the feed. And it's a good reason to make sure you are subscribed as well. One of the first things they dropped on this Investor Day call, Adam, and this to me, this is the one that makes the most sense, because we were talking about how just last week, there's got to be a reason they haven't announced the Percy Jackson season 2 yet. It's coming. The viewership numbers were insane. The reviews are all positive. We know we're getting more of this, and they got to start soon to capitalize on the age of the actors. The investor call is what they were waiting for. We have Percy Jackson season 2. Even though we all expect it, we could breathe a little bit easier now.
Yeah, this is one of the things that there's not a lot to add here because, like you said, it's really not surprising. The only surprising thing is that it kind of took them this long to come out with it, even though the show just finished a week ago and we're already like, what's taking them so long? Which in reality for most shows would be like a really, really quick timeline to get renewed a week after release, or after the show finishes airing. But like you said, these cast members are all so young, so they just don't have as much time as I think they might think that they have, because already just watching the show and then watching the cast interviews, and I've talked about this with all of us the last few weeks, you can already tell there's a sizable gap to when they filmed this to how old they are now. And I'm sure it's going to be the same thing when we see them again on our screens compared to, how they are now is going to be another big gap. So, they're aging really, really quick. So they got to get moving. But yeah, I mean, there was no reason for them not to, like you said, all the positive reviews and everything. So I'm just glad we can put that matter to rest and not have to bring it up, every single time something about Percy Jackson comes up. Why haven't we gotten a renewal yet? So I'm glad we can finally put that matter to bed for sure.
And when season 2 comes, when we're covering the Sea of Monsters, you will be able to tune in to the Agents of Fandom each week, because I'm very confident that for this next one, we're not going to be waiting until the end of the series, unless it's timed stupidly with something else. I don't think we're going to be waiting until the end of the series to cover this one. This is very likely going to be a weekly cover as each episode drops. So check out the episodes with the amazing guests we've had: Nicole Drum, Liam Crowley, Eric Ito from the Seaweed Brain podcast. So many great guests covering Percy Jackson, so make sure you check that one out. Next thing I want to cover is Bob Iger also confirmed that the very next Star Wars movie we are going to see in theaters, the first one for their big next slate of movies, will be the Mandalorian and Grogu film, and it's going to likely be released in 2026. So we're at least 2 years away from the next Star Wars movie. If I were to guess, probably 3 years away, because Star Wars does love those like Christmas-ish release dates. So it'll probably be like December 2026. That actually still leaves a lot of storytelling to potentially be told in that time. Like for sure 1 season, but like potentially even 2 seasons. I don't think would be super crazy if they needed to of The Mandalorian in that time. Having said that, we do still have the Acolyte coming. We have Skeleton Crew coming. Hayden Christensen, sorry. Ewan McGregor has recently spoke about how he would like to see an Obi-Wan Kenobi season 2. And so I don't know. There's still a lot of stuff coming for Star Wars, but it doesn't seem like any of it's really coming all that soon, with the Acolyte being the next one we're likely to get. What do you think about The Mandalorian and Grogu being turned into a movie coming in 2026? And what do you think we might still get for Star Wars before that?
Oh man, that's a really good question, and there's so many angles to talk about this from. The first thing I want to say too is one of the first things you mentioned is about the release date, that this will maybe be pushed back to late. But if I'm not mistaken, I believe on the call they said right now the plan is to have the Mandalorian and Grogu in like a May slate, which would be which I don't even remember watching. And then they said have the Rey movie, like Rey's Jedi Order movie, would be that their classic December slate. But that's interesting, right? Because like you said, I don't even remember the last time. I mean, it would have been, we've only had 3 Star Wars movies in the last 15 or however many years it's been. So it's like, well, I guess not counting the Rogue One and Solo, but it's been a long time since we've had a Star Wars movie that was not right around Christmas time. So that would be weird, but there's no reason for them not to do it. There's no reason for them to be like, well, that's what we did for the last 3, so we might as well just stick to one Christmas movie each year. Like Star Wars has so much potential, just like with Marvel having 2 or 3 movies and shows releasing each year. So I really hope that they just stick to that and we get to see both The Mandalorian and Grogu and then also the Rey movie in 2026. But as far as what we get between now and then, my hopeful brain and my fans' brain says like, oh man, I'd love 2 or 3 seasons of The Mandalorian between now and then. But knowing kind of what we know and analyzing the data from over the last couple of years, and given how long it takes these shows of this scale now to kind of get up off the ground and film and then run all the special effects and everything in post-production and going through the marketing and all that, just as long of a process as this is now. And given, I believe we don't even have anything that I know of confirmed except for the movie. I don't think we've actually received confirmation that The Mandalorian season 4 is in production and they're writing and anything. So I'd be thankful if we even get 1 season Mandalorian between now and now. I'm super excited for the Acolyte, Skeleton Crew, all that, because I think we are overdue for some fresh new chapters of Star Wars stories like we're going to get with these projects. But I mean, I feel like we've definitely got to get at least 1 more season of The Mandalorian for sure, and then 1 more season of Ahsoka, right? Seems to make sense. And then given what we know about our added on to the the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew. So like those 4 shows, like 1 more of the Ahsoka, like Skeleton Crew, that's 4 shows. Which we've already got 2 slated for this year, and maybe we get, another. I know they've already confirmed that Ahsoka is coming, so I can see that one being like next year if they kind of skip to it and get to it like they should. But I don't know, like looking at it logistically, and I feel like the most logical answer is that we probably won't get another season of The Mandalorian. Maybe we will see The Mandalorian and Grogu in like Ahsoka season 2 or something like that, and then we see them again in their movie. But I feel like, honestly, I'd be surprised if this movie doesn't serve as season 4, because obviously we know we're going to get them in the movie, and then we know we're going to get them again in the Heir to the Empire, the throne, like the big conclusion to this movie. So, I mean, that's already 2 more appearances on top of the 3 seasons they already have. That's like 5 of properties that we see them in. So that seems like a lot. I don't know. 2 more seasons over the next, 2 years, 2 to 3 years seems like a lot, kind of given what we know about the schedule and they like to kind of slow play thing.
if we were to get one season of The Mandalorian and one season of Ahsoka before then, I think that would be more than enough. I think that would be pretty, not more than enough, because like obviously we do want that, but I think that would be pretty great. Because 2026 is a fairly long way away, and Disney did announce that they have some more of their bigger animated IPs coming with projects in 2026 as well. Frozen 3, Toy Story 5 with Disney and Pixar. They're just going to keep beating that Toy Story horse until there's nothing left to give. Like they've done the last story, I think 3 or 4 different times now. And so that one to me is interesting, but they like money. It makes money. It's understandable. Frozen 3, I'm of the belief that Frozen 2 was better than the first one. When I was teaching, I showed Frozen 2 in my class each year because it perfectly tells the story of Canada and settler colonization and how to move forward with reconciliation as opposed to denial. And so I did actually think Frozen 2 was a better movie. So Frozen 3, that's coming. That's probably going to be a big part of my life in 2026 because I'm going to have a 2-year-old. And so they're probably that's going to be right lining up with the time. But 2025 is really I'm sure 2026 will be crazy too, but we don't know all about 2025 yet. 2025 is the year that just from Disney is going to be one of the craziest years ever. And then you account for all of the other movies from all the other studios around the world who were delayed by the SAG-AFTRA strike and the writers' strike, that are movies that were supposed to come this year that are now going to come next year. 2025 might very well be the return of the box office, one of the biggest movie years that we've seen in a really long time, because I'm just going to list them off from top to bottom. Obviously, we'll focus more here on the Marvel ones. But I'm going to list everything top to bottom that Disney's going to be releasing in 2025. Captain America, Brave New World, starting February 14th, Valentine's Day. March 21st, just over a month after, we have the live-action Snow White with Rachel Zegler cast as Snow White. We have Fantastic Four on May 2nd. Yeah, that's still coming on May 2nd, 2025, apparently, even though we don't have a cast yet. To me, that kind of feels like they probably do have the cast. They're probably further ahead in this process than we think, and it just hasn't been announced yet because they're saving it for the right time. They're crossing the T's, they're dotting the I's. But it does feel weird considering we know that Thunderbolts, which comes in July, a couple months later, they're already about to start shooting. They already got everything pretty close to ready to rock here. So it's wild that that's going to be coming after Fantastic Four. And in between those two movies, we have Elio, a live-action Disney movie coming. We have Moana in live action coming, because apparently there's also a Moana 2 that they're changing from an animated series to a movie that's coming in 2024, this year. I don't know how that's getting done. Really, truly feels like we're going back to the 90s era of big hit movie, second one without the main voice cast coming back, straight to DVD sequel. They did literally everything back in the 90s. Now this one they're turning it from a series into a movie, and there's no Lin-Manuel Miranda writing the music. It feels very similar. Then I mentioned, Thunderbolts, July 25th. That's going to be very exciting. Blade, November 7th. They got the date. Apparently it's still coming out. This has been one of Marvel's most delayed projects ever. We got Blade November 7th, Zootopia 2 on November 26th, and then another big one. I don't really care for this franchise, if I'm being honest, but basically everybody else does, so we'll talk about it. Avatar 3 coming December 19th, which also feels pretty darn quick for a movie of that type of magnitude on the visual effects scale. Let's bring it back, starting with Captain America, Brave New World. We're finally getting to see Sam Wilson as Captain America, and February 14th, we're essentially just now exactly a year away from Captain America, Brave New World, a year and a week. We don't know much. We really don't know all that much if you've avoided some leaks and stuff like that, like I have. Where does your anticipation level of this film kind of land?
Oh man, I'm super excited for this because, like you said, I've also been very fortunate in that I haven't seen any of the leaks. I know they've been out there because I've kind of had to scroll past and duck some and mute some words So I know that there's been some plot details out there, particularly people getting removed and written out of the cast and stuff, but I have no idea. So right now I'm super excited, mostly because we haven't Sam Wilson Captain. We haven't seen Sam Wilson, period, in now 3 years, going to be 4 by the time this movie comes out, or close to 4. Which is like, and I just feel like going back to like phases 1 through 3, we never went this long without seeing Steve Rogers. Now, granted, I understand the scale of everything is way bigger now, so I cut them a little bit of slack with that, because the group of characters that they're kind of, the story they're telling is not just 5 or 6, it's like 15, 20, 25. So it's a little harder to kind of have somebody showing up. And to be honest, a lot of places for Sam Wilson to show up, or a lot of places, like if Sam Wilson would have showed up, it wouldn't have really made a lot of sense in a lot of these projects that we've kind of had since then. But still, they've got to get this man. I mean, Captain America is the leader of the Avengers. Like Steve Rogers was the leader of the Avengers, and Sam is like the perfect person to take up the mantle of Captain America. And it's like, he needs to be the one assembling, and like we have to see them go through these struggles, and it all has to start with Sam. So it's like, that's why we care much about the Avengers in phases 1 through 3, is because in the first movie, they don't even get to like work together until the very end. I mean, they're fighting each other an hour and 15 minutes into the movie. And it's like Steve, and then, a little bit of Tony that brings them back together and kind of rallies them as a team. So it's like, I want Sam to get all these moments that we love Steve so much for, like that Steve got to have in phases 1 through 3. And I feel like this is going to be the first of those moments, because we've never seen, not only have we not seen a bad Captain America movie, we've never even seen like just a good one. All 3 of them were great in my opinion. I know mileage varies a little bit on the first one, and I think it's a little harder to compare now, given that what we got in the second 2, or the second and the third ones, because those are both just like probably 5 or 6 of the best comic book, like 2 of the best 5 or 6 comic book movies ever made. But after rewatching the first one, I think it's aged really, really well, and that's a great movie. So I just want us to get everything that we got with Sam. I know I'm just kind of going whole rant about Sam. I love Sam Wilson, and I want the masses to love him just as much as everybody loves Steve, because he's just as great of a character. And unfortunately, the masses just haven't been given a chance to love Steve to love Sam, because they haven't seen him in 3, now like going to be 4 years. So I don't know. I'm super excited to get to see him again, but I want to make sure they do right by this character. And I know we've had this because this movie was supposed to come out later this year, if I'm not mistaken, originally like in November. So the delay to me means maybe they had a few things that they were gonna trim out. But I hope all that stuff is in service to the story and in service to Sam as a character, and that it'll all work out for the best. But overall, and one more thing I'll add too is like looking at the slate and of the things you announced, this is like the one movie that I would be absolutely stunned if we didn't somehow get next year. Like if it did get delayed, because there's a few movies on this list. Like if Thunderbolts got pushed back to early 2026, I'd be like, okay, that's not really that surprising. Even though it's already been pushed back a couple of times, that just seems like one of those movies that's prime for a couple of delays. And I'm in the camp now that I just don't even, I can't even force myself to believe that Blade is even happening because of all the constant bad news that's coming along with that movie. So same thing, if all of a sudden a report comes out tomorrow that's like, Blade has been delayed from November to February to like the 2026 slot that Captain America is currently in, I'd be like, okay, that's not really surprising. But I mean, even if they move Captain America back a little bit, I'd be stunned if that movie's not like the latest releasing in the summer. So I don't know, man. I know I just ranted for like 3 whole minutes on Captain, but I fucking love Sam so much, man. And I cannot wait to get him back. I know we're going to get a little bit of him too in What If Season 3, which is coming soon, which I'm super excited for because we haven't gotten him in What If Season 1 or 2 somehow, which is kind of a crime that there was no Sam Wilson in either one of those 2 seasons. But I'm glad they're amending that and that we're going to get him in Season 3. And I just can't wait to see him back on the big screen, man.
I agree. And the other thing I'm just excited to see him do is lead. You know, that was one of the best parts about Captain America, the Winter Soldier, is you have Sam, you have Black Widow, and Cap is leading this team, this little mini team through the journey. And I'm excited to see Sam do that. Obviously, we know we're getting a hard hitter like Harrison Ford coming in here to play Thunderbolt Ross. This is the movie that is rumored to finally be the one that really addresses what happened at the end of Eternals. Whether and I won't dive too deep into people who are really looking to avoid potential spoilers, but I think this is going to end up being like a early synopsis, early trailer kind of thing that drops this movie, but that'll be something that's going to be addressed. And outside of that, we really don't know where this movie could go. We know we're going to get Danny Ramirez who to come be a new Falcon, but I would like to see some part of this movie be Sam bringing a team together a little bit as well. Doesn't even have to be assembling the new Avengers, but just him leading a team of some capacity. Who knows? Maybe this is the next time we see Kamala Khan and Kate Bishop. Maybe Sam is introducing young Elijah Bradley to the rest of the squad there. And so I'm really excited. I'm really excited for this movie as well. I couldn't agree more with you, actually, that the first Captain America, the first Avenger, has aged super well. I think when we just compare it, the first one to the sequel, it doesn't compare. And especially if you look at it, the context of where the MCU was at that time, it's hard to look at the Captain America, the first Avenger, as great Captain America stuff when we get to see him do all this cool stuff in the Avengers. And then he goes to Winter Soldier and levels it up. Some of Captain America's like best action moments are just like implied montages in the first Avenger, where it's just like good stuff is happening, you're just not seeing it. And so at the time, when you compare it to the Avengers, when you compare it to Winter Soldier, it's not the same. But now, when we're at this current stage of the MCU, there is no shortage of cool Steve Rogers moments. We got it. We got everything we could have possibly dreamed of. And so now to go back and look at his origins, because if you want to see his action, you can go anywhere else. It kind of amplifies that first movie for me because you don't feel like it's missing because now we've already gotten it because it's other stuff is out now. And so I agree. It's aged really well. I think Captain America and Blade are the ones to me that are like, we're getting these in 2025. Like, I just feel like they're going to prioritize and make sure Blade happens because they can't keep pushing it back. And so Fantastic Four, the next one though, that's supposed to come out second in May, is the one that surprises me the most. That it's this early, and I think it has the most likelihood to get delayed. There's been, we know Pedro Pascal is Reed Richards. There's been weird shenanigans of like a supposed SAG-AFTRA strike, a SAG-AFTRA site listed that he's going into production soon for Reed Richards. And then it got taken down. But then apparently it also wasn't even actually a real SAG-AFTRA strike site. I'm so used to saying strike after site that had it. It was just like somebody reporting on it. Either way, even if it was a real one, I think that could have been the case of Marvel going, hey, we want to announce this. Don't put it out yet. But then literally just, I can't remember if it was this morning or last night, the time that we record this, Matt Shackman posted on his Instagram story that Pedro Pascal is joining as Reed Richards with a photo of him as Reed Richards. And so we know Pedro is Reed. We've talked about this a lot already. We're not going to speculate on the cast. We'll spend lots of time talking about Fantastic Four throughout the next year on this podcast. But that's kind of my biggest question to you is, do you think it actually makes the May 2nd release date?
No, there's no way. I mean, I know they've said it's getting ready to start production soon. We also know nothing about this movie too, but it's like going back to what we talked about earlier, that knowing what we know about Disney, like kind of relating back to the Percy Jackson stuff, and not even just Disney though, really with like film and television in general now, post-COVID, we're in a different era now where we're not getting a season of TV like every year or really even every 2 years. And the same thing with like sequels. It's like the same thing like with Shang-Chi. We don't even have any news on, like, Shang-Chi was one of the most popular Marvel movies of Phase 4. Especially like with featuring one of the most popular new characters. And we're now 2 years removed from that, closing in on 3, and we still know absolutely nothing about like the next. Whereas like in phase 1, 2, or 3, and really just anything kind of pre-COVID, like in general, pretty much before Shang-Chi, like even probably before it even aired in theaters, we would have known about the sequel and like that at least the sequel was confirmed. And then they would make changes to the news. It seems unfathomable that a Marvel movie that it seems like it's going to have to require a lot of special effects. The Fantastic Four, just like by nature of the Thing and Johnny Storm, are like two characters that when they're fighting or when they're displaying their powers are 100% CGI, either all on fire or all rock.
I think
And
they're
we
gonna
know
do.
that.
I think they're gonna do Human Torch with practical effects.
Oh, dude.
They're just gonna douse them with some gasoline and
I need
flame on.
Deadpool to I need Deadpool to pop in, and if they're to do practical effects, and Deadpool to pop in like he does in Deadpool 2. He's like, holy shit pickles, that guy's actually on fire. That's not CGI, folks. He's actually on fire. Need them to do something like that in the Fantastic Four. But no, just circling back. Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like there's way too much kind of going against this movie for it to make its release date. Now, it could be a case of, like you said, just to play the devil's advocate, they could be so much further along in this movie than anybody knows and just have not let on and pretty much have everything they need, like a lot of the special effects and scene, because this movie is going to be a lot of CGI, which just as a reminder for people, because I constantly see people that don't know the difference. Like VFX is just a shot that is like digitally kind of like what's the right word here that I'm looking for? It's edited. It's like a similar shot, but they just kind of add stuff. Like CGI is just a complete generated image. It's not though they touched up some face. So I think there's going to be a lot of CGI shots in this movie, just by the nature of the cast and the powers. And like, surely this, as important as this is the one thing that they cannot get this wrong. This is the most anticipated, the most talked about. This has to be a great movie, like a classic. Like people are like,
this is your next Avengers. This is your next first Avengers movie.
Right. This, like, there's two. I know we're not talking a lot about DC, but like the two most, I think, like important movies of 2025 are the Fantastic Four and Superman Legacy. Like two movies that do not have any leeway to get it wrong. They have to stick the landing. It's so important. So I think about that and I'm like, maybe my logical brain, it's like, maybe they've just been spending the last 2 to 3 years already working on CGI shots and touching up the script and doing all these things. So when the cast gets there, it's like 2 to 3 hard months of filming, and then they're done. And they can spend the next 8 or 9 months touching up the visuals, and we'll be ready to go. And maybe that's the case, but that just seems, given all the other stuff we've already talked about on the slate, and now that Disney has lost, and like Marvel has lost I know it's all under the Disney umbrella, but Marvel lost their great visual effects and CGI studio to Avatar. The same that handled like Endgame and Infinity War are now working on the Avatar movies. So that's why, like, a lot of people, there's been a lot of complaints about the VFX, but they lost their best studio, which is why the Avatar special effects have not dropped off. And granted, the sequel
lost their biggest studio that they could actually give those projects to and could take it on as one studio, and then decided to overwork a shitload of smaller studios to compensate.
Right. Yeah, shame on them for that one. But yeah, man, I can. It's just one of those things that could really go either way. I know nobody likes a fence sitter, but there's a case for it going. There's a case for this being a movie to premiere in late 2026, or there's a case for it to stick to their release date. And it's just hard to make a kind of a firm implant guess on that because we know so little about this movie. But I'm excited about it nonetheless, especially if. And I just want us to put this cast. I know we're not going to speculate on the cast, but I am so tired of just all this stuff, like the stuff that's been going on the last 24 hours. Like, oh, this site, the SAG site reported it. Oh, but then they took it down because that wasn't official. That was just a reporter writing off a rumor. Oh, but then a director posted it. Oh, but he only has 600 followers. So it's like, what? I'm just so tired of all this speculation, this guessing. I'm ready for whether it's Marvel at D23 or at San Diego Comic-Con, or whether it's an official report or whatever it is that we finally get confirmation, or whether it's just Kevin Feige just jumps on a Zoom call and just streams it live on Twitter. I don't even care at this point. Just please make it official and put us out of our misery.
I do really like maybe it's just too galaxy brained, but with all of the shots and photos that are coming out right now with Daredevil, it does feel like there's a story to be told that says they're actively saying, hey, everyone, this is coming. Look at it. Ooh, shiny. Keep your eyes over here. So that they can get shit done with some of these other projects as secretive as possible. Because it does feel wild that we do not know a cast for a movie that's only 14 months away.
Yeah.
Like, that's very out of the realm for them. And so it really does feel like they're doing their best to just kind of go, look over here, keep my eyes, keep your eyes on my fingers, while they try and slip something else by us. Because Thunderbolts, that's actually another one where we feel like more just gets let out about this movie. But it's interesting, right? Because Thunderbolts, that's like an Avengers level assembling of a group. They're bringing in all of these people, but they're bringing in all of these secondary characters from these different projects. This is really something that they haven't done yet. And you got Bucky, you got Yelena, the two people who are really going to bring the most of the people in here. But then you got David Harbour as Yelena and Nat's dad. You got Ghost apparently coming back. You got John Walker as the U.S. agent coming back. You have Taskmaster coming back from Black Widow. Val is Julie Louis-Dreyfus's character. She's supposedly going to be the one bringing them all together. We have Sentry, who's apparently going to be the antagonist-ish, maybe. And that was going to be Stephen Yeun, and now it's Lewis Pullman. There's a lot, like, this one is a lot. There's a lot coming out of it, and the weird thing is, to me, is like Thunderbolt who's Thunderbolt? That's Thunderbolt Ross. That's Harrison Ford. We don't really know what, if any, capacity he's going to have in this movie yet. And then the other thing, who's the leader of the Thunderbolts from comics? Obviously, they don't adapt this one for one, but they never have for any of these things. But who's the main Thunderbolt? Well, it's Baron Zemo, and we have absolutely no knowledge of him potentially being in this yet either. So, what do you think about this kind of makeshift Thunderbolt squad? Where does this movie rank for you hype-wise? Like, I think it's probably fourth for me of the 2025 projects, but I'm still wildly excited for it, if that makes sense. Like, it's not like I'm not excited. I just think it's last of the 4 Marvel projects. And it is for me, unless we do get some crazy other stuff we don't know about yet. For me, it's really Bucky and Yelena that are making me go, I really want to see this movie.
Yeah, well, I'm with you in that I think it's number 4, but that's not a case of like, wow, I'm not excited about this. It's last on the list. That's a case of like, wow, there's 4 things on this list that I'm really, really excited for. So, but I'm looking forward to this because I just the general like, team up stuff, because I we got a little bit of it in the Marvels, and we get a little bit of it here and there, but I'm just excited to see 5 or 6, 7, and hopefully more that confirmed that we know of now. Hopefully more, like you said, hopefully Zemo and hopefully Thunderbolt Ross and this kind of stuff. All of them together in one movie. And also, I was super sad to hear about Stephen Yeun, departing the movie for scheduling conflicts. But Lewis Pullman is awesome. He's really great in Top Gun Maverick. But if you want like a good Lewis Pullman feel, and you're also like a Brie Larson fan, Lessons in Chemistry on Apple TV Plus is incredible. And Lewis Pullman in the first few episodes of that show really shows off some acting chops that he kind of didn't get the chance to show off in Top Gun Maverick, because, he's more of the, I'm just Bob. I'm Bob. That's it. Like they're not giving him a lot to do in that movie. So he doesn't really get a chance to show off what he can do, but he shows some real anger and some stuff that I don't know much about, like Sentry from the comics. I mean, it's kind of funny even hearing you word it, and you're right. And that like, he's going to be the antagonist for a movie that is full of a bunch of he's going to be or the antagonist. So it's like, you got to be really, really evil. And I think given what a lot of people have said and maybe some previous comic stuff, he's slated for kind of like a start out on the team with them and working with them, but kind of fade away and from them and turn out being the bad guy. You look like you got something to say too.
Yeah, so he's from I've brought it up on the podcast before. My favorite comic arc of all time is just because it hit at the perfect time for me for nostalgia reasons. I had a teacher who bought the books, read them, gave them to me when he was done, and in computer class. And because I was so good at typing, I was always way ahead of everybody else because my mom made me take out of school typing classes. So I got to sit in school and read comics that he would give me. And the first like complete arc I got to do that with was World War Hulk. And basically what happens is after Hulk comes back and takes over the world and beats the shit out of all the heroes because he's pissed off. Sentry's like the last guy, like one of the very last guys they go to fight him, because 1, he's so strong, 2, he's so unstable. And so he's diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. He's not a villain by any means. He's a hero, but he struggles super wildly with his mental health, to the point of he's like, I think it's been kind of differentiated depending on the comic you look, whether it's like a multiple personalities or a schizophrenia or a dissociative identity disorder. It kind of varies depending on who wrote it. But stupidly powerful. Essentially, imagine Superman, but with intense mental health issues. Is kind of what Sentry is. He gets his power he has the power of 1,000 suns, is what he says, and he powers up with it, and he not just stronger than Hulk, but strong enough to go toe to toe with World War Hulk, who's like the strongest Hulk we've seen. And so I think it's going to be a bit of a case of like, he's supposed to be on the team. He's a victim more than anything else. Like we're probably going to see like people experimented on him or something, and it made things worse. And it's probably going to have to be like they have to subdue him and take him down because the good guy accidentally went a little crazy, kind of thing.
You know, that sounds interesting, but it also sounds like one of the most common problems that, I mean, I have it a little bit, but I know a lot of the general kind of population has with these overpowered characters. And we've seen it a lot with Superman, especially like one of the most common things what people say about Superman is like, well, he's just a boring character because nobody can ever beat him. And the only way to beat him is just with some green rock. So if somebody has a green rock, but it's like, we also haven't gotten enough of like why Superman, Zack Snyder, I feel like didn't do a good job kind of portraying in his movies the humanity aspect of Superman. Like, so I'm excited to kind of get stuff like that. But then I look at it, and we're seeing it a little bit too with the new game that's out that you and I were talking about just before we went live, the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League game. I kind of think about that. There's interesting parallels here because it's like, okay, well, if this dude is strong enough to kill the Hulk, I'm like, how? And I know, Stan Lee has even talked about this going way back to say the strongest character in a movie or in a comic is whoever's writing the property. That's whoever wants that character to be the strongest is who's writing, and that's who's going to have the ultimate say, and that people should stop comparing power levels. But it's like to hear something like that, like, oh, wow, this dude's got the power of 1,000 suns. And then to look at the picture of people that are going to be taking them on who are mostly just humans, a few of them, with some super soldier serum in them. But I'm like, realistically, couldn't he probably just dispatch of them in under 15 or 20 seconds? Like if he wanted to. So it's like, there's a little bit of a problem. I don't want them to have the same problem there that people have with, and it's the same thing with the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. They're like, how is Harley Quinn shot like stand up against Superman? Like they're just regular people, but like granted like some enhancements, but it's like, I don't want us to have that same problem. And now I don't think it will be as bad because a lot of the general population isn't familiar with Sentry because nobody's ever seen him in a movie. Like the comics readers will be, and they'll know about him, but if he's never been on screen anywhere. So for a lot of people, this will be a completely new character, which I think gives them a little more leeway as to how they want to tackle that. But I don't know. It's just one of the interesting tropes to me is this overpowered character taking on like a bunch of little characters who in theory shouldn't stand a chance, but then they kind of end up working together and accomplishing this kind of stuff. So I think they're going to have a little play with adults, but overall, I'm still super excited for it.
I'm super excited about the cast. I do have some worries that they're going to end up just trying to be like, all right, Suicide Squad with James Gunn was awesome. Let's do that with our team. And it's basically just not the Hulk, but it's Sentry. And it's what if he accidentally snapped and now we have to stop him? Like, I really hope that's not just the plot. I hope there's more to it than that. And if there is, I think with the ingredients that they have, this could be a really, really great movie. Blade is the final one of the year, and this is the one to me that kind of, even though it's been delayed and they've changed scripts, they've changed directors, writers, all these kinds of things, we're all so excited to see Mahershala Ali as Blade, and I still am, but I do actually think that this is the one that was probably the easiest to delay and to fit in somewhere else, because I'm pretty sure, I don't know if this is going to still be the case, but I think this is going to be a movie that takes place as a period piece. Like, I think it's supposed to be like a 1930s movie, as opposed to a present day movie, if I'm not mistaken. I've heard that. I don't know if it's true. But I'm pretty sure this is going to be a movie that does not take place during the main timeline of the MCU. Maybe, like, I shouldn't use timeline because maybe it's in the sacred quote unquote timeline, but just not in the present. And so I do think this is going to be something that they'd be able to like put in wherever and then bring Blade back in for whenever they need him, because the movie wasn't set in their timeline order. but again, we really don't know much other than that. Even if we don't know if that's true, it's maybe true. We just know Mahershala Ali is going to be there, and it's probably going to be pretty badass. Blade is such an important property because it skyrocketed the superhero movie trend that we know today. It's one of the reasons the MCU exists. It's the Blade, Spider-Man, and X-Men. Those three movies are the reasons we have the MCU today, and so it's an important one. It's an important one to get right. And I think the fact that they've taken so much time to make sure they get it right does say something positive about this.
Yeah, I think that's an optimistic outlook to look at it with, and I hope that's the case. It is a little alarming. I remember writing up a piece for the site. It seems like ages ago now when Mia Goth joined the movie, and I had to do a little bit of research just to talk about all the changes, the directorial changes and the writing changes and all that kind of stuff. And I was a little surprised to kind of read back just how far that goes. I'm interested, like the period piece. It's funny. I haven't even heard that, but it would make sense. And I know they also, the one thing that I had heard about this movie is that they're interested in it being a little bit lower budget, more practical effects and stuff like that, instead of this real big budget CGI fest, which that like excites the hell out of me, because the original Blade movies are like that. They're very practical, and like to the point where, granted, those were like late 90s, early 2000s movies. So yeah, it can look a little goofy, but sometimes like that goofy practicality is better than just like the super artificial, like some of the stuff we got in Quantumania that is like and Thor Love and Thunder as well. That's like so painfully artificial that it just takes you out of it. Like it can be a little bit more of like passively immersive. I don't know if that sentence even really makes sense, but just in a way that you're like, yeah, like you're reminded of the effects and stuff, but it's like, okay, this at least doesn't feel like I'm standing on a sound stage in the middle of the volume. So I don't know, I had to take my pot shot at the volume at one point or another. It was coming, and I'm glad that I finally got it off. But I mean,
our fellow agent Carlos had a pretty great tweet, whereas like one of the things that came out of this Disney call was Bob Iger saying, we are going to reduce the volume of Marvel Studios content going forward, focus on quality, not quantity, in our bigger projects. And Carlos goes, no, we said we wanted you to reduce how much you do in the volume, not reduce your volume. Like, just get out there on scene and shoot more.
Yeah, and that's one thing that has me, I mean, just to kind of go on a little bit of a random note, but to what you mentioned earlier, that's one thing that has me so excited for Daredevil, is like they're actually doing all this stuff and filming in New York City. Now, granted, that is why, like everybody, I've seen a lot of people say like, well, I don't know how there's so many set leaks. And I'm like, because they're filming on a street in New York City. That's like, usually they're just on a locked soundstage in Atlanta, Georgia, so that nobody ever has any access to. That's extremely restricted. Like that's why they're able to be so secretive. But yeah, like there's no way to just block off 10 blocks of New York City. So of course, like people are going to see it. But that has me excited because especially the original Daredevil has a lot of that feel. Like it just feels really genuine. Like feels like you're inside the city, and that the city itself and the Spider-Man movies, I think, do a really good, or at least the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies in particular, do a good job of like New York City feeling like a character in the movie as well. And I think we're going to get a lot of that in Daredevil as well. So I'm excited. But yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, Blade. Mahershala Ali is probably the most talented actor to join the MCU like ever. But like, it's given his history and stuff, he's an Oscar winner, and I've never seen him in anything that he wasn't absolutely phenomenal. He's like highly touted, sought after. So if you get a talent like this, this is another thing too. I know we said that Fantastic Four and Superman Legacy were the things that you have to get right, but I'd almost put Blade on that list too. One, because like a lot of people are going to show up for this movie just because they know about like general public stuff, because they know about the early stuff. Oh, a Blade movie. I remember watching those movies like 20 years ago. Sure, I'll go see what that's about. And then like a lot of people will go see it just because of Mahershala Ali as well. So if you get a talent like that with like a well-established property that's already had a few good movies that people like, I mean, I think the first one is the best, and they kind of taper off a little bit, especially by the time they got to Trinity. I think it was just kind of a shit show, but it's still an established property with like a really, really formidable actor. So it's just so important for them to get this right. And I hope that you're right in saying that these delays are a good sign of that. But when I read up on some of it and all these changes, I do want to say the most important thing is that it seems like he's still in it. He says, yeah, there's some changes, but like I'm still excited about it, which that's the important thing, because I don't think he would have any reason to just come out and like blatantly lie if things were going poorly, because he has a lot of sway too. So if things were going really poorly and he said something about it, that would be kind of a nice reminder for them to get their asses in gear and make sure they got this right. So I don't know. I really hope they get this right because and the genre thing that they've been doing, there's so much potential here with like the horror aspect of things, and obviously they won't go too crazy with it, but man, there's so much to be excited about, and I really hope they get Blade right. I hope you're right that all these delays will inevitably mean or eventually mean good things.
Well, I think the if they do the period piece aspect of it too, I really think this movie has so much potential to be great. One, I think that could actually just really fit into Mahershala Ali's acting talents of throwing it into a period piece and just letting him cook a little bit more as opposed to just kind of an everyday kind of thing. And additionally, it's kind of tough to do. Oh yeah, there's vampires here too, but none of you knew about it at this stage in the MCU without giving us a why nobody knows about it. And it's simple. Maybe Blade did something in this movie that led to they've been gone for the last 80 years kind of thing. And they've been in hiding for the last 80 years because of what happened in the Blade movie. And so that's kind of another way too that they can go with it so that as they continue this character for a long time, Mahershala Ali is not the youngest guy. They can keep Blade in there for a long time, being like, yeah, he's already been alive 150 years. He's not a spry young pup anymore. So I think there's a lot of fun ways that they can go with that. Final thing I want to touch on before we get out of here is on the gaming side of things, because there was some fun video game news dropped as well outside of the Disney call, separate from the Disney call. We got Insomniac Spider-Man 2, New Game Plus, as well as some new suits and some other features are coming on March 7th. I was kind of hoping when they announced a New Game Plus, maybe it would come with a DLC as well, since it has been so long since the game came out. But I love these games so much, just as you do. We've both done content on it. We've both done some streaming, and it's such a great game. The New Game Plus is going to be exciting, and hopefully, fingers crossed, a couple DLCs aren't too far away.
Yeah, well, I was hoping for DLC stuff too, but in reality, it does seem like it's been a long time. But it's only been like 3 months.
Yeah,
it's really only been like 3. And also, we have to remember that the people at Insomniac went through that stage of the horrible leaks where so many of them, well, one, like game development info got released, but more importantly, like personal information regarding many of the employees was released. And that was, I think, a big, I mean, it's just obviously a horror. That goes without saying that it's a horrible thing and that should have never happened, and shame on the people who would do anything like that. But I think that also played a big part because, they remember when the game dropped, I remember they tweeted from the official account or one of the developers, I believe, said that like the plan was for it to be by the end of 2023. And now it's not coming until March. So I think all those leaks and everything probably set them back pretty big. And I'm willing to be lenient about that too. But I'm hoping that's kind of the case that with DLC that I think, so maybe if the original timeline was we get New Game Plus and sometime in December, like a month or two after release, and then we would have gotten DLC in this March-April slot, or like an announcement in this March-April slot. Maybe now, since we're getting New Game Plus in the March-April slot, that we get a DLC announcement in like sometime in the summer that's going to come later this year. Like maybe line up with like the 1-year anniversary, we'll get a big DLC expansion. Because there's so much, we about this a lot, but there's so much to do there, whether it's Carnage or Chameleon or it's funny because I haven't even played, and I believe you're in the same boat as me here. Since the last time I touched it, like a week after release, I just have not picked it up since. And I'm so excited to jump back in. When I saw the notification about new suits, I just scrolled it because I want to know like what the suits are, but I saw they didn't actually announce what the suits are. They just said new ones were coming. So there's so many things I'm excited to be able to play through the game with, hopefully like the entire game with the symbiote, and then also have like all the suits, like Tom Holland's final suit at the end of No Way Home, and the Amazing 2 suit, which I know you get that pretty early, but like a lot of these suits in the beginning cutscene, because some of the early cutscenes are like the most friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like the game takes a pretty big scale, like in the beginning, which I like. And one thing that I wanted to ask you too before we quit talking about this is like it has been so strange to me, this turn that people have had on this game, because when it came out, it was perfect. Like it was unanimously agreed that this was a perfect game. And then I think when those leaks came out, a lot of people saw, the things that were scrapped, like the Riot boss fight and all these, like all this crazy stuff. And they were like, well, that would have been cooler than what we got. Instead of like just judging what we have, people thought that like what we got would have been cooler. So then now somehow what we did get was not that has been driving me nuts. Cause if you venture into any comment section, like on a Spider-Man 2 tweet, it's nothing but people just being like, game was mid anyway. Shit. And I'm like, I'm usually not the kind of person that's bothered by that stuff, but I'm like, this was like a fucking awesome game. And then when the Game Awards came around too, people were like, it was basically just a shot-for-shot remake of the first one. I'm like, no, it wasn't at all. There was so many changes and developments and enhancements and advancements and like all this kind of stuff. And we got a better story, the bigger. And I'm just like, do people not think? I don't know. Are you as bothered by that as me? Because that has just been driving me nuts the last like few weeks, seeing so many people just completely do a 180 on this game.
It's one of those things that anytime something is pretty close to universally liked, it basically just flips because it becomes cool to do the opposite thing afterwards. Because it was like, I'll compare it to like Everything Everywhere All at Once. That's very much what it felt like. Is everybody loved this movie. This is groundbreaking. This is a masterpiece. And then a year after it came out, everybody's like, honestly, it wasn't even that good. And so it's really a lot of the same the same type of thing. I've played it twice so far to 100%, once on Amazing, once on Spectacular, and so I decided to wait for Ultimate until I had the New Game Plus, because I don't want to have to go through all of that with like the regular stuff at the beginning. But apologies for that, everybody. The final thing is to cover before we get out of here is really an unprecedented kind of thing. Like, I don't even really know how to break it down. We don't know what this is going to be yet, but Disney has purchased the stake in Epic Games, investing $1.5 billion, not million, billion, to create essentially, like, this isn't the only reason. There's going to be multiple ad things in there as well, but the main collaboration here is going to be with Fortnite, and to essentially create like a virtual Disney world where, if my understanding is correct, you're going to be running around this area as your Fortnite character. And you can go into all these different parks that'll include Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, Avatar. And within these places, they're actually going to be releasing like some exclusive content. So you'll be able to like go into these places and then watch in game. And that'll lead to more collaboration with Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, Avatar, bringing them into Fortnite as well, expanding Fortnite maps. So you'll be able to play in these Disney World versions of a Fortnite map in game. I don't know what the heck is going on, but this is a pretty crazy development. Is this enough to get you back into Fortnite?
Oh man, that's a question right there. That's a loaded question. I played so much Fortnite when it first came out. It was one of my favorite. I mean, peak Fortnite was just one of the best gaming experiences just in general. There's nothing like it. That many people in the world, everybody universally playing the same thing. But the few times I've tried to play since, it's just been the skill level has long bypassed my old bones and what I'm capable of doing, which for me is like if I'm just caught up and just get killed every time I get into a fight, I'm going to lose interest pretty quick. Like, even if what I'm doing is immersive. So like if they create something that, and it's almost hard to comprehend everything that you just said about what we could possibly be getting, but like, if we get something like that where it's more exploratory based on like these cool worlds like Avatar, Marvel, Star Wars, like I would definitely be interested in something like that. But if I also have to fight like little Timmy, who's been playing Fortnite in his mom's basement for 5 years to like get to those things, then they'll probably lose me on that. I just hope there's like and I know I sound just like the quintessential old guy saying that right now, but I hope there's a more casual setting for those kinds of things, so that people who want to enjoy, like, especially if there's going to be exclusive stuff on there, I feel like there has to be. You can't make people fight through other players to get into something to watch, like a clip of. So this whole thing, I just feel like we're talking in a time machine.
I'll tell you right now, I will be heavily invested if it's like win this tournament and you'll be the one person who gets to see this clip from this upcoming show. Oh my God, I'm going to be just going in there just like murking 12-year-olds to get this shit, man. Like, I'll tell you what, like, I didn't play for the longest time because I just like assumed I missed the wave and I was going to come in and not be able to do anything. But I find this, and like multiple people have said to me too, I was worried because I was never good at Call of Duty. Like I would partake when like during the time when people would like, you know, it's 9th grade, it's 10th grade, and we got our Xbox 360s. And everybody after football practice is going to join back up on, and we're going to play COD or we're going to play Halo in our party, and we're going to have a bunch of fun. I was decent at Halo. I sucked at COD. I find it translates very similarly actually to Halo in terms of like how everything works. And I found that like it was so much easier than I expected. So I the first one I did was I just did like a regular old 100-person battle royale. I didn't know any of the controls yet. I just figured like I'm going to go into this game and I'm going to figure it out on the fly. I got 94th. I died right away. Next one, 88th. So a little bit better, right? My third one, I got 4th. I got 4th in the whole thing. And then I go and I play with my 11-year-old nephew and his cousin who's 1 year older. Shout out to Joe and Elliot. And we're playing trios. We got our battle royale trios going. We won victory royale 3 times in a row. So I don't know. I might just be a natural with this shit. I think it's one of those things that it's like me not being good at COD, I think actually translated to me being good at Fortnite.
You know, oh man, I hate to rain on your parade, but I think what might have been happening there is, you know, Fortnite now, as every multiplayer game does, unfortunately, and so I'm the opposite. I era Call of Duty, like Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops, like that was my shit. And it came not naturally to me because I'll never forget the very first game. And now for people listening to this that happened to be playing Call of Duty back in the Black Ops days, my first Call of Duty was Black Ops 1. My first match was on Havana, the horrible, horrible map on Black Ops 1. And I went 0-32, 0 kills, 32 deaths. And it was on Christmas Day, 2011, whatever year it was that game came out. But over the years, I played so much that I got to be okay with it. I think I had right around a 1.5 KD or something like that. But similar to like Call of Duty, Fortnite, all these games now have skill-based matchmaking. So and even for me,
everybody was bad.
So yeah, the thing is, I remember recently when the new season of Fortnite came out, or like the new chapter, not just season, like a few months ago. Me and a couple of friends loaded back up and played, and we were just winning games left and right. And we were just playing against, like, because Fortnite also has bots in their game.
Yeah.
Like, they have like the computer players in the games. So, oh my God, we were having a blast for like 3 days. And then we won enough that it started putting us in these lobbies with actual players. And we were like, okay, we're not built for, we were having fun with the bots. Now we're playing against little kids, and we're not cut out for this.
All I was doing was beating the shitty 12-year-olds who were playing for the first time.
See, yeah, that's like, I don't know though, man. It just going back to originally what you said, even just listening to you say those kinds of things, it feels like we're talking in like a time machine, because that just all seems so futuristic and crazy, especially coupled with this news of the Apple Vision Pro, whatever that's called, their VR thing, the videos that have been circulating around with that's $3,500. But like even that looks like something straight out of the future. So man, I don't know. The whole world, I know I sound like an old head here, but the whole world is just moving faster than I can keep up with.
Shout out to our amazing co-owner and social media coordinator, administrator, presidente, whatever you want to call it, Ryan Cortero. As we're recording, he just brought up a pretty interesting tweet that I figured we might as well talk about as well. After a fake Deadpool 3 picture went viral, Michael Chiklis clarified he isn't reprising his role of the Thing. He said, "I do know who they're casting, though. Not my place to tell, but I will say this. I'm a fan of his work, and I wish him luck and success with it." So there you go. That does kind of lend to what we were saying, is maybe there's more going around behind the scenes than we realized, and they could be further ahead with the process of Fantastic Four than any of us know. To find great news like that and much more, make sure you follow the Agents of Fandom on socials, at Agents Fandom on TikTok and Twitter, Agents of Fandom everywhere else. And then make sure you like, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you are listening to us on YouTube, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a 5-star rating and review. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us this week. We will be back next week with our Avatar: The Last Airbender primer. Following that, we will be diving into Avatar: The Last Airbender with some of our great colleagues. And we're going to have Erica Ito from the Seaweed Brain podcast back on to talk about Avatar as well. So stay tuned. We got lots of good stuff coming. Thank you so much to everyone for tuning in today. On behalf of myself and Adam and the whole Agents Fandom team, we will see you next week. Peace.
Peace.